Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Love Meets Literature. Today, we will be discussing some books that we would love to get to in 2025 because there are just so many books and so little time. Before we begin, I am your host, Rachel, and you can find me on Instagram at Paperbacks and Sketchbooks.
And I am your other host, Joe, and you can find us at Love Meets Literature.
You can find us everywhere on the internet, so please do give us a follow. It will help us immensely. So 2025 is literally right around the corner, and all I seem to be thinking about is all of the books that I wanted to read this year, but alas, there is no more time.
That's true. It's very, very close, like less than 10 days. I'm starting to think about all the books that I did read this year. I feel like I read quite a bit.
You did. I feel like I read a whole lot of books too, but there's always those books that I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to get to that just never happened because other books came in and pushed those out of the way, especially all the new releases this year. I feel like I was reading a lot more new releases than I usually do. I mostly wait until books have been out for a while before I read them. I don't know why. I just do. It's hard to get new releases from the library, but I've managed pretty well this year.
Yeah, I feel like I remember you reading a lot of new stuff. Like every month, seemingly, something new would catch your eye and you'd want to add that to the top of your list.
But there's a whole lot of older books that I want to get to as well. So while I do have some newer books that I want to prioritize in 2025, there are also some older ones on my list as well. But before we jump into our 2025 hopefuls, 2025 TBRs, whatever you want to call it, who knows if we'll get to them or not. How has your past reading week been?
It's gone very well. I've been listening to the audiobook of The Hobbit, and I am 60% of the way through. I'm pretty close to finishing it.
You're in the home stretch.
Right. Between today and tomorrow, I should definitely be able to finish it, which I will have to because I have to return it tomorrow. So
better put that up on 2 times speed.
Yeah, I've been listening at 2 times speed. It's really funny, though, because I never knew previously that it was a children's book, technically. It was designed originally for children. And then when you actually listen to it, you definitely get why it's a children's book because there's so much singing in it. And so the narrator will sing the songs, and they're often like kind of goofy, silly songs. And it's fun. Like, I could see reading to a kid or creating that story for a kid, and it would just be fun the whole time.
Oh, I didn't realize the audiobook narrator would like sing songs.
Oh, yeah, he does the voices for the sing songs too. So if it's this character, it's this voice singing, and if it's that character, it's that voice singing.
Interesting.
It's very talented, actually, like quite the range of vocals, but it's fun. I like it.
I mean, it sounds entertaining, at least. I don't think I've ever listened to an audiobook where the narrator just like starts singing a song that's in the book. I feel like it's usually just said.
I mean, this is really my first exposure to songs in books. I feel like if anything, it's often like poems or something, but I think it's been fun. I mean, like he actually kind of sings it, and it obviously fits with the book, right? Like they're actually in there. So it's fun. I like it. I definitely like the audiobook version of The Hobbit.
Is that the only thing you were reading?
Technically, no. I was still working on Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. However, due to the requirement of needing to finish The Hobbit first, because I have to return it, I decided to put that on the back burner. But it's still there. If anything, it's going to roll over and be one of my 2025 hopefuls because it's just on the back burner this entire time.
It's just sitting there staring at you saying, pick me up and read me already.
I'll get back to it. It's right over there. I'll get back to it.
Yeah, if he had eyes, he'd be side-eyeing you right now. Well, my past reading week was pretty good. I finally finished my A Court of Wings and Ruin reread. So that was really nice. I finally have that off my reading list because I started this a few months ago for a buddy read with one of my friends. She flew through it and I was like, I'm not in the mood and I'm just going to cause myself to slump if I try and get through this book that I love, but I'm not in the mood for it. So I didn't want to like ruin Echo War for me on my reread. So I decided to just like put it down because I've already read it. I know what happens, but I just wasn't in the fantasy mood. So I finally picked it back up a couple days ago and I got the audio from the library. So that really helped. And I actually really liked the audiobook. I've never listened to the ACOTAR audiobooks. Actually, that's a lie. I listened to one, the really short book. It has the blue cover. It's called A Court of Frost and Starlight. It's like the little transition book between Echo War and Silver Flames. I listened to the audio for that one because I was struggling to eyeball read it because for some reason it was really boring me when I read it. And I did like that audiobook. So yes, everything I said was just a lie. I have listened to the ACOTAR audiobooks before, but only Echo War and Frost and Starlight. So they're good. They're good audiobooks. So like if you want to read ACOTAR, but like the length of the books is like kind of scary for you, the audio is a good option. Audio tends to move quicker if you're concerned about time. But if you're not eyeball reading it, I highly recommend because I just feel like you absorb more when you eyeball read, but maybe that's just me. It's probably just a me thing, honestly. But reading it again, I still loved it. It's still a super thrilling book. I think the ending is an emotional roller coaster is the best way to put it. The entire book is just like all like war and politics and it's really good. I really like Echo War. It used to be my favorite of the ACOTAR series, but I think after reading the first 3 books again, I have to think that A Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite now, which is book number 2.
Right. That's the one that I'm going to be going to.
Yes, you will be reading that soon, I hope, because it is really good.
What about it makes it your favorite?
Well, it's hard to say without spoiling things, but you get the introduction of more vital characters to the series. And I really like all of the characters that are introduced. You get to see more of Prithian, which I think is super interesting. You see more of the fairy realm.
Right.
And there's more character development with Feyre and her sisters. Like there's some pivotal points with her and her family that are super important to the rest of the series. And I think that's super interesting. The entire book was just written super well. It was super entertaining. Like it shifted focus a few times, which I liked because then you weren't just like reading about like one thing for pages on end. It moved fast too. Like it had shorter chapters. It was just written very well. The characters are really nice. And yeah, the entire book I would say is my favorite.
Well, I'm excited to read that one.
It's super good. And I think it's probably like the ACOTAR fandom's overall favorite book, like on average.
All right. Well, that's high praise. I'm looking forward to it.
It will be well worth your time. And then when you get to Echo War, I think you'd really like Echo War too, because it dives into more of like the fairy political stuff and war and all that jazz. And it's also super good. So that's what I recently finished up reading. I also finished up the Holiday Acres series by Noelle Adams. That was that little wintry novellas that I was reading, all under 200 pages. So they're fast reads. They're not on Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately. I did have to find the last two from the library. But our library has Hoopla, and Hoopla, you don't have to wait. You can just check them out, which I love. So that's how I got the final two books. So the most recent one was Stranded for Christmas, and it was nice. I think it was my favorite of the series. It's the only one I gave 5 stars. I just thought it was written very well. I feel like the author finally hit her stride with the series on the last 2 books, actually, because the second to last book, Stranded in the Woods, I gave 4.5 stars. So the last 2, definitely my favorites. The characters were very well written for such a short page length, and I just loved them. I loved the characters more, I think, in the last 2 books than the first 2. So that series is definitely worth the read if you want something that's like cozy and wintry and don't mind spiciness. Again, it was like unexpected spiciness for me, but after reading the first book, I was like, well, the rest of the series is going to be like this anyway. So I knew what to expect going in. So if you don't mind like a sweet and spicy wintry novella, the Holiday Acres series is good.
I think I might pass on that one.
It might not be your thing, but
No.
like the ladies listening to this, if they want something romancy and sweet and cute, but also a little bit spicy, they're really good. It's Holiday Acres by Noelle Adams. Today's episode, our 2025 hopefuls, books we're going to prioritize in 2025 TBRs, whatever you want to call this episode, you get the gist of it. Before we jump into that, when you are reading books, do you hear the words in your head and do you see the scenes that the characters are in?
I hear the words in my head. Like I have that internal monologue, but I don't see the scenes.
You don't see the scenes?
I do not, which is why I think it has been very difficult for me to like get back into reading, because like, have you seen the scale where it's like a number 5 is like a full colored red apple, and then number 4 is a black and white shaded apple, and then it's just the outline, and then it's like nothing. I am like somewhere between the outline and the black and white shading. Like I don't see color when I picture something in my head. I know that it's a red apple, but I don't see the color of it.
That's interesting. I feel like I can see things in my head in the color that they are in.
Can you see like hyper detail?
No, it's never super detailed. It's mostly like if someone were just drawing a cartoon.
Right.
Like
okay.
I see that, but like I could tell that like they're real people. Like if I'm reading about a character, like I imagine them looking like a real human. Like I don't imagine them looking like a cartoonish person.
Right.
But there's never really any facial features on them. It's just like a blob of a face. But obviously they have whatever color hair they have that I'm reading about and whatever. But I mostly like kind of imagine them as like a human, but also like a stick figure. So it's like weird, but in my head it works and like I can see them. It's hard to describe because they're not in detail, but they are in detail.
Yeah, it's like your mind knows that there's detail, but you couldn't maybe describe it or something like that. And that's kind of how I am. I can see, the character in their bedroom, but I don't picture it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand.
Like if you tell me that your character is sitting on the bed and I don't know, there's like blue sheets or something, I know what you're talking about. But if I wanted to really picture it, I would have to like close my eyes and focus on seeing that. I don't just naturally see it as I read, as where some people, the scenes play out like a whole movie inside their head.
I don't have the full movie thing happening because when I read, I'm kind of like when I picture the scenes, I kind of picture them kind of like a storyboard. Like the characters aren't always like moving. Like they are like
Okay.
if he's like, "Oh, I tucked like her hair behind her ear." Like, yeah, I can picture that action cuz I've
Right.
seen that action. But like if it's something where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm looking at, like a fighting scene, it's kind of just like storyboard mode where like she's crawling through a tunnel, this animal attacks her, and it's not like fluid movements.
It's almost like you're creating your own comic book in your head
Kind
where it's
of.
like panels of the different action moments kind of.
Yes. Yes. But I can hear like the emotions in the characters' voices very clear.
Oh, see, I do not have that at all. If they're like, I don't know, she said this sadly or something. I don't even know if that's a good word to use here, but I'm just like nothing that does not register in my
Do
brain.
you read it in your head in like a monotone?
Kind of. I guess I haven't really thought about that.
Because when I'm reading words on a page, if a character is in a scary situation, everything they say, I hear in my head like they are scared.
Interesting.
I can hear the fear in their voice. Or if they're really angry, I can hear the anger in their voice because my brain really focuses on the punctuation and the surrounding context.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I don't think I do because I can't recall. Most of the time when I'm reading, the inner monologue is more like a narrator, not necessarily doing voices for people, which is probably why I don't like when audiobooks do voices, is because that's not what my internal monologue does.
Well, I guess mine doesn't really do super distinct voices. Mine is kind of like an audiobook narrator doing voices.
When they go like up a slight pitch to be.
I guess. Well, actually, no, because my current read, which I'm going to talk about at the end because I'm almost done with it and I'm very excited about it. I keep picturing the male character's voice sounding like a man. So like it really depends like on the book, I guess.
I will say if the book that I'm reading engrosses me a lot, then yes, I can like if it starts to kind of really pull me into that like flow state of reading, then I do kind of just I can start to picture it more and I can start to hear it more and feel it more. But yeah, sometimes when you're just like reading a chapter, you're not like reading it, you know? Then I'm just like
Yeah.
these are words on a page.
Yeah, like when I'm just starting a book, like it definitely takes me a minute to like get into it, but then like my brain starts connecting all the dots with all the characters and stuff, and then it starts forming like the voices and the accents and
Yeah.
whatever. Like if a character is like said that they're British, my brain will read it in a British accent.
Oh, that's crazy. No. You would have to remind me that you're British every 2 sentences. Otherwise, that's not happening.
Like it's weird. Or if I'm reading a book that's set in England, like I just automatically read the whole thing with a British accent in my head. I don't know if that's like normal or if I'm a little weird.
I think that's like an advanced brain because I feel like normal, maybe I'm wrong, but
I
normal
don't
brains
know.
don't do that.
I don't know, but that's how I am. Like most of my historical fiction books, like they're just read in like a weird accent in my head.
I do remember when I read the Third Law trilogy because it was so unique. Each character was so unique. I do remember having kind of like voices in my head created for the characters. So maybe that's what it is the more that I like your characters and the settings and everything, maybe the more my brain does it naturally, which I guess I don't know if I've really ever read something that takes place in Britain or anything like that to give myself the opportunity to see if my brain will do the English accent naturally.
The human brain is fascinating because there's like no way I should be able to accurately say things in a British accent in my brain.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like you're talking in your own head with your internal monologue.
And my internal monologue is a British accent when I read certain books.
I wonder if you didn't know where it took place, if your brain would naturally start to do the British accent. Like if it just picked up on other context clues over time.
It might. I don't know. Because, so with Akotar, for example, I don't picture Feyre or her sisters or any other characters with an accent at all, but I picture Reese with an accent because he's always like, Feyre, darling.
I feel like, well, I mean, I guess I don't know that much, but he's supposed to be like really regal.
Right. Like he doesn't have
And
like a British accent in my head. He has one of those like super like pompous,
yeah,
posh ways of speaking.
he's got the like stereotypical vampire in
Yes.
new vampire, new age vampire.
That is kind of how I picture his voice, even though
Yeah.
he's not a vampire at all.
No,
But
he's got vampire vibes. But
anyone who is described how Reese is described in the ACOTAR books, my brain will do that like super posh sort of vampiric accent.
I guess I am thinking about the other characters because, especially in ACOTAR, because they are distinct enough where I do feel like I've put maybe not necessarily a voice, but like my mental tone shifts when they are doing an action or talking or something like that. Because when it's Feyre, it's very like rebellious and young and very naive. And then when it's like, what's her love interest? Tamlin?
Tamlin.
Right. He reminds me of like gruff, blue collar kind of guy. And so that's kind of how I always pictured him, like rough, unapologetic sometimes, like that kind of thing. And then Lucian, I think that's his name. He always reminded me of like younger brother energy.
Yeah.
I guess he also was like the youngest of his brothers, which makes sense. But in my head, that's like kind of when he was talking and his actions and stuff, that's what it always made me think of. So I guess maybe this just proves that when you're a good author, then people, kind of conform their thoughts and things like that to the characters that you're writing.
So I guess we both hear words in our head, but you don't always see pictures.
No, I do not.
Interesting.
I am like envious of people that can, though. I think that the idea of being able to like conjure a whole book in like almost movie form inside your head seems amazing.
Yeah. Now, I'm not at the point where I could like draw character art based off of a book's description. Some people can do that. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I never would have pictured them looking like that. But also, I never really, like, my brain doesn't always store what the character really looks like. So I kind of have to like flip back sometimes and be like, what do you look like again?
Yeah, that's true. I don't really do that either. Like once I've conjured in my head what I deem you look like, which is kind of the same thing of what you were talking about. It's like you're not a stick figure, but you're not like a full-fledged person. It's more like my brain kind of defaults to like 2D. Like I imagine you animation style of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, not like Disney. I also didn't know, or I always forget that like characters like hair colors and stuff like that. So it's often just like whatever I picture you as, that's what you are indefinitely.
Yeah. Sometimes a book will say, oh, the girl has blonde hair, but for some reason in my brain, she has like brown hair. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I know she's blonde, but my brain just can't picture her without this brown hair. So that's what she's getting, I guess.
Right. That's like the same problem I have. Like whenever I saw the fan art of Feyre and she had like these really long blonde hair.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know why, but I've just pictured her with like really short, like kind of not, I guess like dirty blonde hair.
For ACOTAR, I've seen so much fan art on Instagram that my brain now kind of just pictures the fan arts that I've seen when I read ACOTAR. So I've always kind of pictured Feyre how she's described in the books and whatnot.
But also in my head, Tamlin is just like a werewolf, basically. He's not ever a real normal person.
He reminds me of Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. That's
but
what
I just picture him only in the beast form.
Yes, exactly. I am the exact same way. He is permanently a beast. He is never normal person.
Yeah, no, he's not at all. Well, this was a very fascinating discussion.
Yeah, learning a little bit more.
I know. I never knew that you could not see the scenes in your brain.
Nope. Just
Well,
words on a page.
interesting. Interesting. Well, you know what is going to be interesting? Seeing what books you're looking forward to reading in 2025. So, what are you looking forward to reading in 2025?
Well, you're going to notice pretty quickly mine has a theme, which is,
They are series.
yes, finishing series that I have started this year and next year. I had the problem of jumping around a lot, so I'm going to try to streamline them a little bit better in 2025. The first series that I'd like to get back to is the Dresden Files. And these are a series of books. I think it's like 15 or 18 now. There's a lot of them by Jim Butcher. And the premise is following Harry Dresden, who is a wizard slash private investigator in the Chicago area. The next one specifically that's on my list, I've actually read the first two of these. The third one is Grave Peril. Harry Dresden's faced some pretty terrifying foes in his career. Giant scorpions, overzealous vampires, psychotic werewolves. It comes with the territory when you're the only professional wizard in the Chicago area phone book. But in all of Harry's years as supernatural sleuthing, he's never faced anything like this. The spirit world's gone postal. All over Chicago, ghosts are causing trouble, and not just as the door slamming, boo shouting variety. These ghosts are tormented, violent, and deadly. Someone, or something, is purposely stirring them up to wreak unearthly havoc. But why? And why do so many of the victims have ties to Harry? If Harry doesn't figure this out soon, he could wind up a ghost himself.
I mean, that series does sound super interesting.
The premise is great. I really loved the first two books. I don't really know why I kind of stopped after the second one, but I mean, he's a wizard, he's a private investigator, and he's in the Chicago area.
Yeah, I mean, that's all very intriguing stuff.
Right. And knowing the Chicago area, when they mention different things in the book, you're like, I know where that is.
Is it accurate though?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Like they talk about like the South Side and like here and there on the South Side. And they're like, okay, well, we have to go to this place, which is on the North Side. And they like mention that. And you're like, I do know that is like accurate. That's true.
Well, I hope you finally make some headway in that series next year.
Yeah, me too. I should get back to it.
Well, one book that I'm hoping I get to is Crossroads by Devney Perry. I got really into Devney Perry this year, and I would love to read more of her backlist. This is one of her newer books that was released in June of 2024. And it is part of a new series that she's writing called Haven River Ranch. So this is the first one in that series. This is a small town romance, of course, because Devney Perry is the queen of small town romances. And there's just something I find so charming about them. It makes me want to move to a small town in Montana. I feel like my life would be better in a small town in Montana after reading her books. So this book, Crossroads. I met West Haven when I was 8 years old. He taught me to play poker when I was 9, and we made paper airplanes together when I was 11. He kissed me when I was 16. He was the best part about my family's summer vacations to Montana. He was the boy who stole my heart. I was 23 when life ripped us apart. Years later, I'm breaking my vow and returning to the ranch, not as a guest, but its new owner. West might want me gone, but even he has to admit the only way to save his family's legacy is with my help. It's not easy working side by side and facing those old memories. But this situation is only temporary. We're at a crossroads. And as long as I don't let myself fall in love with West Haven again, maybe this is our chance to put those ghosts to rest. Maybe this time we'll finally be able to say goodbye. My kind of book right here. And I can't wait to get to it. I wanted to read it this year, but it just didn't work out. And now the year is almost over in a matter of days. So there's no time for this one. So 2025, I shall read it.
How fitting. You couldn't get around to it, and then you're going to go back to it later. That's the whole premise of the book.
Oh, I guess it is. You see, when I read out loud, even to myself, I don't retain any information.
Oh, no, I completely agree. Yeah.
But if I'm listening to someone read something out loud, like I can retain the information. But because I'm reading it to myself out loud, I'm focusing too much on pronouncing the words correctly.
Right.
That
And
I
like
don't remember anything that I just read.
trying to talk like a normal human being. You get halfway through and you're like, I've forgotten how to say words.
But Crossroads by Daphne Perry, I will definitely be prioritizing in 2025.
Next up on my list is, you guessed it, the Witcher series.
I'm not surprised.
I'm finally going to make it a priority to finish this. And it's a little bittersweet because I actually have really enjoyed it going throughout. And now I think they're doing the next Witcher game, Witcher 4. So I'm going to have to finish the books. I'm going to have to play the game again, and then I'm going to have to play it once it comes out. Speaking specifically, though, the next one on my list is Lady of the Lake. And before I read this, extreme spoilers from the last book. So if you haven't read this one yet, or the last one yet,
Skip ahead by like 20 seconds.
yeah. After walking through a portal in the Tower of Swallows, thus narrowly escaping death, the Witcher girl, Ciri, finds herself in a completely different world, a world of elves. She is trapped with no way out. Time does not seem to exist, and there are no obvious borders or portals to cross back into her home world. But this is Ciri, the child of prophecy, and she will not be defeated. She knows she must escape to finally rejoin the Witcher, Geralt, and his companions, and also to try to conquer her worst nightmare. Leo Bonhart, the man who chased, wounded, and tortured Ciri, is still on her trail, and the world is still at war.
Maybe I'll give The Witcher a go in 2025.
You certainly could. I'm very excited for this one, though, because I so badly want to see Ciri turn the page and become the warrior that she's like wanted to be. And I really feel like it's going to happen in this one. And I want her to get revenge on Leo because he's evil.
You think there's going to be some sort of like revenge plot that's happening?
I really hope there's some big fight scene between them.
I do love a good revenge story.
Yes. And out of everybody, I can assure you he deserves it. But again, that was Lady of the Lake, the 7th out of 8 in the Witcher series.
Hopefully it's good.
It's supposed to be like not the last one because technically they wrote an 8th, but I'm pretty sure that's like an epilogue more than a full other book because it was written way later, way after the fact.
So then is Lady of the Lake like the quote unquote last one?
I think this is like the ending.
Okay.
And then the epilogue was to close out some other stuff, but I'm not entirely sure. I've tried to avoid reading about it to not give myself spoilers, but that's just what I've gathered.
Well, I hope it's a great ending.
Yeah, me too.
Another book that I very much want to get to next year is one that I've mentioned previously. This is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while now, and I've been wanting to read through Sager's backlist. And I've read a couple of his books, so this is another one that I need to get through. It has very mixed reviews, but I will be the judge of that. This one follows Maggie Holt, and 25 years ago, she and her parents, Ewan and Jess, moved into Bainbury Hall, a rambling Victorian estate in the Vermont woods. They spent 3 weeks there before fleeing in the dead of night, an ordeal Ewan later recounted in a nonfiction book called House of Horrors. His tale of ghostly happenings and encounters with malevolent spirits became a worldwide phenomenon, rivaling the Amityville horror in popularity and skepticism. Today, Maggie is a restorer of old homes and too young to remember any of the events mentioned in her father's book. But she also doesn't believe a word of it. Ghosts, after all, don't exist. When Maggie inherits Bainbury Hall after her father's death, she returns to renovate the place to prepare it for sale. But her homecoming is anything but warm. People from the past, chronicled in House of Horrors, lurk in the shadows, and locals aren't thrilled that her small town has been made infamous thanks to Maggie's father. Even more unnerving is Baneberry Hall itself, a place filled with relics from another era that hint at a history of dark deeds. As Maggie experiences strange occurrences straight out of her father's book, she starts to believe that what he wrote was more fact than fiction. A spooky, haunted, paranormal book that I will probably prioritize for October of 2025 because it's like very Halloween fitting, but I might read it before then because who says I can't read thrillers all year round? I do anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true. It does have very much Halloween vibes, though.
Yes, and the whole thing just sounds very interesting to me. It has a lot of like iffy reviews. People are like, I don't know if I really liked it, but I'm not them and I haven't read it yet. So
True.
I will have to find out for myself if this book was a yay or a nay.
Only one way to find out.
I know. I hope it's a yay though. Like I hope it's good. That was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager.
The next series on my list is one that we were literally just talking about earlier in the episode. I would like to finish the Akotar series in 2025.
Finish the series. Well, the
Yes.
series is still unfinished, so you won't really be finishing it.
I guess that's true. I am at the mercy of the author in this case, but I would at least like to catch up on the series, get to real time, if you will. But the next one on my list is again a book that we were talking about earlier, which seems to be the favorite of most people, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Yes, you must get to it. You must.
And so to clarify, if you're not familiar with the Akotar series, a lot of people use the acronyms for them. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is Akotar. And then when you go to the next one, they call it the Akotar series, right? But it's called Akomath, A Court of Mist and Fury. And then Akowar is A Court of Wings and Ruin. And there's another one. And then she changed it up and there's like just Silver Flame or something.
Yeah, Court of Silver Flames. So there's like no and in there. So you can't make a fun acronym.
Akos.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound that
the
good.
one before it is like kind of similar too because it's A Court of Frost and Starlight. So it's Akofas. And then you have Akos, which is like nothing. So I just call it Silver Flames.
That's fair. But in case people are confused and you've heard us say that a million times, that's what it all means. I'm going to talk about the next one on my list. And again, major spoilers if you have not read Akotar, meaning A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first one.
So once again, skip ahead by 20 seconds if you don't want Akomath spoiled for you.
Feyre survived Amarantha's clutches to return to the Spring Court, but at a steep cost. Though now she has the powers of the High Fae, her heart remains human, and it can't forget the terrible deeds she performed to save Tamlin's people. Nor has Feyre forgotten her bargain with Rhysand, High Lord of the feared Night Court. As Feyre navigates its dark web of politics, passion, and dazzling power, a greater evil looms, and she might be the key to stopping it. But only if she can harness her harrowing gifts, heal her fractured soul, and decide how she wishes to shape her future and the future of a world torn apart. It's everything you want, right?
Yes, it is.
I am very curious. The big thing that I thought of when I think of this book is I know there's a bunch of stuff to do with the Night Court and Rhys. I'm just very curious on like what the big bad guy is going to be in this. Like what is the actual negative besides like just, you know, her being stuck between these two people or whatever. So that's the part that's got me really interested in. I want to know what this evil thing is that she has to stop.
You're going to have to read it and find out.
I'm going to have to in 2025.
It's very, very good. 2025 needs to get here already. So January 1st, I can plop this book down in front of you and be like, here, 2025 hopefuls, book number 1, ready to go.
Well, I guess I better add that to the top of my list.
I am super excited to read Immortal by Sulin Tan in 2025. This one actually releases very soon. It releases on January 7th, and you best believe the second it comes out, I'm putting a hold on it at the library because I want to read it that badly. I loved her Celestial Kingdom duology, Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Heart of the Sun Warrior. They were fantastic Chinese mythology reimaginings. So good. They have the most beautiful covers that I have ever seen, too. If you've never seen these covers, you need to look them up because they're fabulous. So, super excited for Immortal. This one is a complete standalone. You don't have to read the Celestial Kingdom duology in order to read this one. Immortal is about what the gods did not give us, I would take. As the heir to Tianxia, I apologize if that pronunciation is incorrect, Lian knows she must ascend the throne and renew her kingdom's pledge to serve the immortals who once protected them from a vicious enemy. But when she is poisoned, Lian's grandfather steals an enchanted lotus to save her life. Enraged at his betrayal, the immortal queen commands the powerful god of war to attack Tianxia. Upon her grandfather's death, Lian ascends a precarious throne, vowing to end her kingdom's obligation to the immortals. When she is summoned to the immortal realm, she seizes the opportunity to learn their secrets and to form a tenuous alliance to safeguard her people, all with the one she should fear and mistrust the most, the ruthless god of war. As they are drawn together, a treacherous attraction ignites between them, one she has to resist, to not endanger all she is fighting for. But with darker forces closing in around them, and her kingdom plunged into peril, Lian must risk everything to save her people from an unspeakable fate, even if it means forging a dangerous bond with the immortal, even if it means losing her heart. Now, according to the author, this is set within the same world as the Celestial Kingdom duology. However, it is completely different characters, completely different story, and you do not have to have read the Celestial Kingdom duology in order to read this one. And she also said that there are no spoilers within Immortal for her previous books. So complete standalone, gives nothing away for the Celestial Kingdom duology. So if you want to just read Immortal, you are safe to do so. You're not going to be spoiling anything else.
That's cool. I like that she did that.
Me too. And the cover for this one is also beautiful. I don't know what artist she has, but the covers are just gorgeous.
Oh, wow. That looks really good.
They're so good. In person, they have like the gold foil on them and stuff. So I'm excited to see what this one looks like in person.
Yeah, you can make that into a poster. It looks awesome.
So Immortal by Sulin Tan comes out the first week of January. I cannot wait.
Next up for me is what I'm calling my easy series. This is the Percy Jackson series. I did read 2 of these already. Well, I've read like all of the original Percy Jackson series and then a couple of, I think it's called The Lost Heroes. But they're such easy reads, and I haven't read them in so long that I wanted to go back through them again. And so I started them again in 2024. And I want to try to finish them in 2025, along with the additional Lost Heroes and maybe some of the other ones that I haven't actually read. I think there was one of that took place for the Egyptian gods.
The Kane Chronicles?
Yes, I never read those either, but I've heard good things. So this is going to be my easy reads when I just want to have fun, read something that I obviously already kind of know, and I can just get through it. Specifically, the next one on my list is the third one, which is The Titan's Curse. I'm sure everybody is familiar with. If not, there's a quick little description here. It's not every day you find yourself in combat with a half lion, half human. But when you're the son of a Greek god, it happens. And now my friend Annabeth is missing. A goddess is in chains, and only 5 half-blood heroes can join the quest to defeat the Doomsday monster. Oh, and guess what? The Oracle has predicted that not all of us will survive.
The Titan's Curse is really good. I really liked that one. When you're done with the original set of Percy Jackson, you need to read The Lost Hero. and then you have to read the next 2 Percy Jackson books. I still haven't finished The Lost Hero.
So are you not supposed to?
So Rick Riordan decided to add these 2 new Percy Jackson books recently. Like they're like new.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, so they are written after he finished the Lost Hero series. So you are supposed to read the Lost Hero series before you read the new Percy Jackson books.
And then, well, for the Lost Heroes, aren't you supposed to read like the first one and then the first of like the Kane Chronicles or whatever?
I don't do all that. I read the series like one at a time. I still haven't finished the Lost Hero series. I need to, but it was really good. I think I'm on the final book of it.
I remember reading the first one, and then I think I got the second one at some point. But then we've moved like 1,000 times. So I don't think any of the books exist anymore, but I'll have to get them again.
I need to continue a series next year. One that I think I read the first book in 2023. So I might have to do a reread of the first book. But this book is Us Against You by Frederick Bachman, and this is number 2 in the Beartown series. I really loved Beartown. It's such a heart-wrenching story, and it also makes you like really think about things. So it's not for everyone, but I really love Frederick Bachman's writing style. He wrote A Man Called Ove. I know that's a really popular one by him that a lot of people know. It's the one that was turned into a movie. And that one was super good, which is why I wanted to read Beartown. I've also read another one of his books, My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And that one was so good. So very excited to continue the Beartown series. So Us Against You is number 2. After everything that the citizens of Beartown have gone through, they are struck yet another blow when they hear that their beloved local hockey team will soon be disbanded. What makes it worse is the obvious satisfaction that all the former Beartown players, who now play for a rival team in Head, take in that fact. Head being like in the country they live in. I believe this book takes place in Sweden. Amidst the mounting tension between the 2 rivals, a surprising newcomer is handpicked to be Beartown's new hockey coach. Soon, a new team starts to take shape around Amat, the fastest player you'll ever see, Benji, the intense lone wolf, and Vidar, a born-to-be-bad troublemaker. But bringing this team together proves to be a challenge as old bonds are broken, new ones are formed, and the enmity with Head grows more and more acute. As the big match approaches, the not-so-innocent pranks and incidents between the communities pile up and their mutual contempt grows deeper. By the time the last game is finally played, a resident of Beartown will be dead, and the people of both towns will be forced to wonder if, after all they've been through, the game they love can ever return to something simple and innocent. So this series focuses around hockey teams in Sweden, and it's amazing. And I love it. And I really need to read this book.
It cracks me up that you're not a huge fan of hockey as a sport, but you read a lot of books about hockey.
Okay, well, this series specifically doesn't really focus on like the gameplay. It focuses on the characters and their decisions that they make and like rivalries and just life and like the bigger picture. And it's so good.
I mean, it sounds really good. I like the premise.
Yes. So Us Against You by Frederick Bachman, number 2 in the Beartown series. I will finally continue this series in 2025.
My last one is technically the only one that's not a series, but at the same time it is. It's called A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. And this is the next trilogy, I believe it is, after the first Law trilogy. I guess you could argue that that's a series if you make 2 sets of 3 books. But, however, I definitely want to start it. And this is a book that you had actually gotten me.
I did, and you haven't read it yet.
No, I have not. I believe I've talked about it before, but if I haven't, here's a semi-quick description. The chimneys of industry rise over Adua, and the world seethes with new opportunities, but old scores run deep as ever. On the blood-soaked borders of England, Leo Danbrock struggles to win fame on the battlefield and defeat the marauding armies of Stour Nightfall. He hopes for help from the crown, but King Jezel's son, the fierceless Prince Orso, is a man who specializes in disappointments. Savine Dan Glokta, socialite, investor, and daughter of the most feared man in the Union, plans to claw her way to the top of the slag heap of society by any means necessary, but the slums boil over with a rage that all the money in the world cannot control. The age of machine dawns, but the age of magic refuses to die. With the help of the mad hillwoman, Isern E. Fail, Reich struggles to control the blessing, or the curse, of the long eye. Glimpsing the future is one thing, but with the guiding hand of the first of the Magi still pulling the strings, changing it will be quite another.
They've got quite the names.
Yes, a lot of the names are a little on the silly side, in my opinion, but it is fantasy, so what do you expect?
Well, yes, I feel like I pronounce 90% of fantasy names wrong in my head.
I do like that because of how the names exist in this world, you can tell what families they belong to. And that's important, especially when you go from the first Law trilogy to this one. You know, certain people are, sons or daughters of other people, which is interesting.
That is interesting. Hopefully it's good. Is it connected to that other series in any way?
Yes. A lot of these people are people in the first book. Well, that's not true. A lot of these characters relate to the characters in the first trilogy. There's especially one of them that I don't want to give spoilers for the first Law trilogy, but I am very interested to learn about that character because there's things that I know about them that are spoilery, so I can't say. But also, one of the characters that I think is completely from the first Law trilogy is the mention of the first of the Magi, and that is also going to be really interesting because I kind of hated him by the end, but he was supposed to be kind of evil, so that's fair. So I'm interested to see what they do with him.
Should be good. Well, we have quite the list of books that we want to prioritize in 2025, and I'm very excited to actually read these.
Yes, got to prioritize them.
I will prioritize them, hopefully. I need to get that hopefully out of my head because there's just like this little thing in the back of my brain telling me you might not get to them, but 2025 hasn't even started yet. And I'm already doubting that I'm going to end up reading all of these.
We can't bring that energy into 2025.
I know, but there's just, like I said earlier, so many books in such little time.
That is true.
There's not enough time to read all the books I want to read because you know what happens throughout the year? New books are released that I also want to read. So I can't always read an author's backlist that I really want to get through because the new releases come and they bump it out of the way. And then they are front and center saying, read me, read me. So yeah, I give in and I read it. And then the other book is just, gone. It's somewhere now. It doesn't exist in my head anymore until I see it one day and I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to read that.
Who knew choosing books could be so stressful?
It is. It's very stressful. It's always a big decision. Like, what am I going to read next? What if I don't like it? What if I'm not in the mood for it? Put it down and move on? I already started it.
You're making me stressed now thinking about it.
So just to get off the book chatter for a little bit, what are you obsessed with this week?
I think this week I would have to say I am obsessed with a game called The Bazaar. I don't really know how to even begin to describe it because it's sort of a culmination of a bunch of different genres of games. The quick little description, I guess, of it is that it's a roguelite card battler or deck builder, sort of. It's more so inventory management. The main gameplay loop is you are in a bazaar, which is a market, and you are using your currency to buy items, and you're using those items to do different things to beat the other players.
Sounds fun.
It's kind of like, it's fun. It's one of the games that's like, people joke about it being a spreadsheet game where it's like you're more so doing math than you are playing a game.
Yeah, you lose me when you say it's math. I'm like, if I have to do like math in my head while I'm playing a game, it's not happening.
It's not like you're literally doing spreadsheets, but they joke it being a spreadsheet game. It's not like, Overcooked, where you're running around and you're doing actions the entire time. They also call them menu games. Words with Friends is a menu game. Overcooked is an action game. The Bazaar is a menu game, but also a little bit of spreadsheet game.
You just exposed my current obsession, which is Words with Friends. I made you download Words with Friends because I kept saying, I'm going to play Words with Friends now by myself.
Yeah. You pick up the ginormous iPad and then you play Words with Friends for like 5 hours every night, it seems.
It's not 5 hours. It's like until I fall asleep, which is anywhere from like 1 to 2 hours.
You are like really obsessed with it and you're good at it too.
Yeah, I can turn a 2-letter word into like 50 points.
Yeah, I'm not. That's why I don't like playing against you.
Yeah, but I made you download it because I don't have any other friends. So yeah, Words with Friends is my obsession. I very much like it, and it's my bedtime game because it makes my eyes tired.
Yeah, because you're getting fried looking at your 42-inch screen you're holding in front of your face.
Well, I mean, but then I promptly fall asleep, so it works.
Well, I guess if it works.
And before we sign off for today, what are you reading this week? Are you reading The Hobbit this week? Is that this week's read?
I am still continuing through The Hobbit, and I will have that done by tomorrow because I have to.
I look forward to hearing about it.
And then I'm going to prioritize Abe Lincoln over there. Finish him up too. Like to have them both done by next time we talk, but we'll see.
You've been neglecting Abe.
I have. We do have holidays right now, so
Time to read Abe.
start calling him Abe. What are you reading this week?
Well, I am finishing up The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen, and this is the first book in a very long time that I have been fully obsessed with. I would say obsessed. I want to make it my entire personality because I just cannot put it down. It is so good. It's fantasy. I would classify it as like just fantasy. It has gods in a modern setting. They use cell phones and it's really funny. They like watch videos on their phones and they text each other. It's hilarious. The humor in this is spot on. There's mortals still, so there's still humans in the book. I wouldn't call it like a high fantasy, but I wouldn't call it a low fantasy. It's like in the middle. It's very easy to understand. Like if you don't have experience with fantasy books, you could easily read The Games Gods Play and it would make total sense to you.
Okay.
It's explained very well.
It's like easy fantasy.
Yes. It's also kind of like an urban fantasy because it takes place in a city at the beginning. And then obviously they like move up to Olympus or whatever. The terminology is very easy to pick up though. So like if you start reading it, because I'm raving about it right now, you will understand what I'm talking about. So this book, I don't want to give anything away because I'm obsessed with it. And I feel like I'm mostly obsessed with it because I knew nothing about it going in. I didn't even read the synopsis. I just saw it was trending online. And I was like, I'm going to put a hold on that. So I got it from the library. And I just never want the book to end. I'm trying to savor the last 50 pages because I don't want it to end. There's like very little romance in this book. Like it's like little smidgen of the book is romance. It's mostly just the main plot of the book, which is like this competition between the gods and they have mortals as their champions. I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil anything. But the concept is done so well. This author is a genius. She writes so well. I love her writing style. The main characters are great. I find myself constantly thinking about this book. It's all I want to do. I'm going to make this book my life. It is part 1 in a series, though. The Crucible. It's the Crucible series by Abigail Owen. Book 2's not out yet. I have to wait until next year, I think. But I'm glad it's a series because I don't think I'd be able to survive if this was just like one standalone. I would be rereading it all the time because it's so, so good. The Games Gods Play is definitely worth the hype. It's like one of those super hyped books on Bookstagram, but it's so worth it.
The way you're talking about it makes me want to read it.
Oh, you so need to read it. The romance is like nothing in it. Like, yes, it's there, but like you kind of forget about it because it's overshadowed by the action that's happening. It's a very action-packed book. It's so good. So, so good. So on that note, I'm about ready to go finish up the games gods play, even though I don't want it to end. You can go do whatever you're going to do, read The Hobbit or whatever. I will be finishing the games gods play.
Sounds good.
I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Pick up a good book. I hope you had a fantastic holiday. And Happy New Year if we don't talk to you before then. And happy reading.